Que lo que mi gente, yo soy Ricky de Bilingue Blogs. Thank you for tuning in again if you are a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button so that I can help you better your Spanish. Okay, we're in the Spanish sentence structure series right now, so this is a great place to start or to clean up your Spanish if you need help cleaning up your Spanish. If you're making simple, fundamental mistakes, we can fix them here for you with this Spanish sentence structure series. If you haven't had a chance to check out the first two, they're right up there. Today, we'll be talking about prepositions, the placement of prepositions in your sentences. And I don't know the correct grammatical term for this, but they're kind of like, I guess, relative pronoun connectors, maybe. I don't know. I have to look it up. I'll write it in the description what they're technically called, or maybe in the title too, what it's technically called. We're going to touch on a little bit of it because I feel like it relates to the same mistakes that you guys are making with your prepositions, okay? That's the reason why I'm throwing it in this video. As usual, let's do our little practice before we go ahead and get into the lesson, just so you can see where you stand. If you get all of these correct, then that's great, but still stick around in the video because maybe I'll say something that you didn't realize applied to the situation, okay? Get your pen and paper and let's get started. Hopefully that went well for you guys. If not, don't be upset. I'm going to explain everything in this video that has to deal with prepositions. And I'm going to touch a little bit of those, like I said, relative pronoun cases. I guess that's what it's called. The first thing you need to know about prepositions in Spanish is that it is not the same thing as a preposition in English. They are the same, they have the same meanings, yes. But they are different in a sense that in English, we've gotten away from Old English. So English and Spanish are both, they both have their old versions of themselves. Well, Spanish is still stuck in that old way of speaking for the most part. There's a lot of things that they say in the old way that we don't say anymore like that in English. So in English, nowadays it is okay, it is acceptable for native speakers to end a sentence with a preposition. For example, as we saw in the practice before the video, the phrase, "What are you talking about?" That sounds so natural to us, doesn't it? But it is not grammatically correct. Technically speaking, in English, it is not grammatically correct. It should be about what are you talking. That's literally how it should be. But we don't say it that way because we're so used to not saying it that way. Or, who did you all leave with? That's not how it's supposed to be said either. So, but it sounds so normal to us. It sounds so natural to us as native English speakers because that's how we always say it. In Spanish, that does not fly. We will never, ever, ever end a sentence on a preposition. Let's look at a few examples here. What store do you want to go to? We would not say, ¿Qué tiendas quieres ir a? But rather, ¿A qué tienda quieres ir? So one thing that we'll notice in Spanish is that I'm going to say a majority of the time the preposition will start the sentence, especially when you're asking a question. A majority of the time. I'm going to show you some cases where it doesn't, but a majority of the time it will be like that, okay? So you see that we have to say, to what store do you want to go? That's technically how we're supposed to say it in English, but nobody does. Second example, where did they run off to? That's another way of saying, where did they go, right? Where did they go to? In English, that sounds, proper. That sounds correct, but it's still not. So in Spanish, we would say, Adónde fueron? Adónde fueron? Where did they go? Or technically, to where did they go? Let's sidetrack for a moment here. When we have donde, if we want to talk about something that's just in a still spot, then we're going to say donde. But if we're going to indicate motion, then we have to add the a in there because it means to where. So that's why in this case we say Adónde fueron? To where did they go? Or where did they run off to? So remember how I said that most of the time our preposition will start our sentence? Well, it doesn't have to, but it just cannot be the very last word in our sentence. So for example, if I want to say, he did it for who? I would say, lo hizo para quién? So you see the preposition para is in the middle of the sentence there. It does not start the sentence, but it does not end with para, okay? It's like the second to last word, so that's okay. Now sometimes, you know, I encourage you guys not to think in English, but I understand that it's inevitable until you get to a certain level. So that's why I'm talking a lot about English here, okay? And I mean, how else would you learn? I even started off translating from English to Spanish. So I want you guys to understand how to kind of separate these things, because your Spanish and English should look different for the most part, okay? So sometimes in English, we won't even have the preposition there, but we need to put it in Spanish. So for example, I can say this one of two ways. 3 o'clock is when they returned, right? 3 o'clock is when they returned. In Spanish, I have to say at 3 o'clock is when they returned. So a las 3 es cuando volvieron. A las 3 es cuando volvieron. But I can also say it a different way. Remember I told you about the placement, so I don't have to start it off with a las 3. I can say volvieron a las 3. Volvieron a las 3. So you see there's two different placements there that I can put my preposition, and it's still correct because it does not end with the preposition. Okay, because remember, we never end a sentence with the preposition. Some verbs, some phrases have prepositions that seem weird to us, that don't make sense to us, and those are just something that we're going to have to learn throughout our Spanish learning journey. Unfortunately, I don't have a cheat sheet for these. Maybe on my website I will make a blog about this, you know, so you guys can have a list of a lot of common ones, a lot of common phrases that use certain prepositions that we wouldn't expect. But you know, all I can do for now is just give you a few examples. So these two examples here are the same question, but they're asked a different way using different prepositions. So if I want to say, what do you do for a living? What do you do for a living? I can say, ¿a qué te dedicas? To what do you dedicate yourself? ¿A qué te dedicas? Okay, I can say that. Or the way that I usually say it, if I want to ask, when I was an optician, I would always have to ask the patients, what do you do for work? What do you do for a living? I would ask them, ¿en qué trabajas? ¿En qué trabajas? So that sounds like on what do you work or in what do you work, right? It doesn't sound like what do you do for a living. And that's what I mean by sometimes in Spanish, sometimes in Spanish the prepositions won't match up as we think that they will. And it's just something that we have to learn, okay? When you want to refer back to a noun or a pronoun or something that was previously mentioned, you will have to use these relative pronoun phrase things here, okay? So what I mean is, el que, la que, los que, las que, those are more oral forms of it. Or the written form, we would probably most likely use el cual, la cual, los cuales, las cuales. So they're interchangeable if you really want to, but the ones that have que are more so spoken. The ones that have cual are written for the most part, okay? So we combine these with prepositions when we want to talk about something that was previously mentioned. This is an area that a lot of you guys struggle with. Like I said, these will mean like, you know, that or which in a sentence. For example, if I want to say, we are the boys that you were always yelling at, I would say, somos los chamaquitos a los que siempre estaban gritando o voceando. I say voceando because I like Dominican Spanish. In this sentence, like I said, it means we are the boys that you were always yelling at, but we want to, when we translate it word for word in Spanish, it's more so we are the boys at who you were always yelling. Another example would be, she looked out of the window through which she could see the storm. Nobody typically talks like that. We just say she looked out of the window where she could see the storm, right? But in Spanish it's a little different. Miró la ventana a través de la que pudo ver la tormenta. Okay? So it sounds really old when you say it, but that's how it works in Spanish. I'm putting different prepositions in front of the el que, los que, las que, you know, because I want you guys to see how it works. We have to think of this stuff when we are speaking Spanish. So, do you remember the ideas that we were thinking about yesterday? ¿Te acuerdas de las ideas en las que estuvimos pensando ayer? Because the phrase thinking about in Spanish is pensar en, okay? So we don't say pensando de, we say pensando en or pensar en. So in this case, ¿te acuerdas de las ideas en las que estuvimos pensando? Because we have to make sure that the same preposition for that phrase, pensar en, goes into the sentence. And this really means, do you remember the ideas about which we were thinking? That's how we would technically say it if we want to do word for word, about which we were thinking yesterday. So I can say in native English, we went to that bank near where the Walmart is. That's how a native would say it in English, but we have to think about it in Spanish. We went to that bank near which there is the Walmart. That's how we're gonna have to translate it word for word into Spanish, okay? So fuimos a ese banco cerca del que está el Walmart. ¿Entienden? Last one, so we can say in our native English, she's fixing the counter that has the stain on top. Right? We're into that with a preposition. But in Spanish we can't do that, so we have to think of it as she is fixing the counter on top of which there is a stain. Ella está reparando el mostrador por encima del cual or por encima del que hay una mancha. Okay? Does that make sense, guys? I feel like once you get the grasp, once you grasp that concept there, it'll be so much easier for you to speak better in Spanish, to write better in Spanish, like a native. These are very subtle mistakes that you guys are making that they will just help you out a ton in Spanish. So hopefully you like the video. That's all I have for you guys today. So now we're gonna get into the answers to the questions in the beginning, okay? How'd you do? Let me know in the comments how you did, what you think of the video. Was it helpful to you guys? Do you have any questions? Like I said, let me know down below. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share the video and the series if it's been helping you. You know, that would help me out a lot because I want to grow, because I want to help more people. It's really fun for me to do this. So the more people I reach, the better. Also, don't forget to hit that like button as well if you liked the video. And yeah. Let me know what you guys want to see next. I have a few ideas for what I want to work on next, but what are you guys struggling with as far as sentence structure? I know there's a lot of stuff that you guys are struggling with, like Spanish tenses and stuff like that, but that comes at a later date in time. Right now we're just working on fixing our sentence structure as far as the right placement of words, okay? So let me know what else you guys want to work on. I'm thinking about talking about how to form questions in Spanish next. But let me know what you guys think. Alright? God bless y que tengan un feliz día.